This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Bodies of 27 migrants wash ashore in Libya. Sudanese protesters opposed to military rule call for free elections. And South Africans and world figures mourn the loss of Desmond Tutu. Welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also coming up on the program, China's Shenzhou 13 astronauts conduct a second extravehicular activities. And demand in Nigeria is rising for woven cane baskets amid holiday season. Humanitarian agencies in Libya are reporting the discovery of 27 bodies of Europe-bound migrants that have washed ashore in western Libya. The bodies were found in the coastal town of Coms in two separate locations. 3 other migrants have been rescued as search efforts continue. The International Organization for Migration says it has recorded over 160 deaths this month after migrants drowned in 2 separate incidents off the coast of Libya. According to the United Nations Migration Agency, about 1,500 migrants have perished in shipwrecks in the central Mediterranean route this year. Well, let's cross over to CGTN's Adel Mahroui. He's in Cairo for us. Adel, what more can you tell us about the bodies of the 27 migrants washing ashore in Libya?
Well, so far it has risen up to 28 bodies found across shore of Libya. That's about in a place called Al-Als, which is about 90 kilometers east of Tripoli in the northern part of Libya in the Mediterranean Sea. And the search and rescue mission is still ongoing. However, it is believed that the bodies of these people may be attributed to an earlier incident about 3 or 4 days ago when the IOM confirmed the death of about 160 migrants who crossed their boats, capsized, and they were not found. According to the initial visual inspections of the bodies found, the initial report says that they most probably have been in the sea for some time, as some signs of impact and decay have been quite evident, which makes it most probably related to the earlier incident about the 160 migrants. However, further investigations are still on way.
Adel, could you tell us more about the search and rescue efforts that you've mentioned?
Well, the search and rescue effort is quite challenging at this time of the year in the northern hemisphere of the earth, where in the Mediterranean Sea, this is a fall season moving into the winter season. So it is quite turbulent in the Mediterranean Sea, and this is usually the most deadly period that we've seen throughout the all-year activity of illegal migration and the attempts to cross the Mediterranean from Libya and Tunisia into Europe, into southern Europe. And therefore, the rescue mission is quite challenging. At nights, it becomes almost impossible for them to conduct any operation, and therefore it pauses and moves on. But the rescuers believe that in the coming days, as the tides of the Mediterranean have thrown away some of the bodies toward that area of Libya, that they expect to find more in the next day. Now, this is not just a first of its kind incident. We know that illegal migration in general has been quite a challenge, specifically from Libya into Europe. Just in the week from the 12th to 16th to 18th of December, IOM says they have intercepted and rescued about 466 migrants. Now, these were the lucky ones. Overall, about 30,000 attempts have been registered by the IOM, where they have intercepted and managed to push migrants back where they find themselves detained in Libya and live under dire situations.
Adel Mahroui joining us there from Cairo. Oh, thank you. The crew of the Shenzhou 13 have finished conducting their second spacewalk on the China space station. Senior Colonel Yo Guangfu left the COMIC module first. Mission Commander Zai Shihang followed around an hour later, and this time Wang Yangping was supporting them from inside the station. So far, the main task of the extravehicular activities has been completed. The 3 crew members have been in orbit since October the 16th and will stay in space for a total of 6 months.
It's their last big assignment this year for the Shenzhou 13 crew, and it's also their second EVA activity. And this time, taikonaut Ye Guangfu and Zhai Zhigang were out, while Wang Yaping stayed in. And for the pair out of the core module, their assignment included some heavy lifting, including putting up and installing a panoramic camera and installing a key component for the mighty robotic arm, and testing out a synchronized collaborative lifting with precision unprecedented. Now, the space engineers here at the Beijing Control Center tell us they were able to ace all of those movements because a lot of times for the key movements, they've practiced at least a dozen times down on the ground. And also another thing we've noticed here at the Ground Control Center, the longer the crew stayed up there in space, the more relaxed and kind of like chilled they are. Today and this time around, we heard the taikonauts joke around with people here at the Ground Control Center, and of course we heard that famous mantra, "I am out and I'm feeling just fine." And we certainly hope and we're expecting that they will be feeling fine the rest of the year and in 2022. Sun Ye, CGTN at the Beijing Control Center.
The International Space Station is expected to retire by 2024, so the CSS could soon be the only one in orbit. But China has promised to share its station with the rest of the world, especially developing countries. CGTN's Sheng Yibing looks at what the future has in store.
One question to ask is, will it replace the existing International Space Station known as the ISS? Well, the latter has been in orbit for over 20 years. It's a multinational project that has contributed greatly to our scientific understanding of space. But it may have to retire after 2024. If true, China's space station could be the only one in orbit for a sustained period of time. So it's very likely to play an increasing central role in future science-related research. Another question is, will it be like the ISS and receive international astronauts? Well, back in May 2018, China, together with the United Nations Agency for Outer Space Affairs, invited all UN members to conduct scientific experiments on the new space station, especially developing countries. So, in this sense, the new space station will be shared by many more countries, acting as an outpost. Some say this is because China was once excluded from the ISS, so it fully understands the needs and desires of other countries. So within the year, 42 proposals were put forward by 27 countries for the first group of tests. 9 were chosen and they are being prepared once the station is put into use around 2022. Training exchanges between astronauts from the European Space Agency and China National Space Administration have already begun. Russia plans to cooperate with China in this field and on lunar bases as well. When faced with a vast and mysterious universe and huge expenses and risks that come with exploring space, no one can work alone. Coming next, 2 of the remaining 8 assembly missions for China's space station will carry the lab modules to the space station. And there will also be 3 more robotic resupply flights, not to mention 3 more crewed missions during the outpost phase of construction. So there's a lot to look forward to in terms of performance and other contributions to the joint exploration of space by all human beings. Zheng Yibing, CGTN, Beijing.
Tens of thousands of Sudanese protesters rallied near the presidential palace in the capital Khartoum on Saturday, demanding soldiers go back to the barracks. It was the 10th major demonstration since the military took power in October. Protesters say they want the military out of the government during a transition to free elections. Soldiers fired tear gas to disperse the demonstrators. Communications were cut off and major roads and bridges were blocked. Officials say 58 police personnel were injured in the protests and more than 100 people were arrested. So far, at least 48 people have died in crackdowns on the demonstrators.
We will not go out in favor of a party or in favor of freedom and change. We will remain in the street unless our demands are fulfilled. And our demands are that the Burm leave and the rapid support militias be dissolved and return to the barracks, and the army becomes a national army.
Rejecting murder, oppression and violence, we went out today and we will go tomorrow, demanding a civil and democratic state in which we'll be free and live in dignity. The weapon of rape shames the rapist. It does not defeat us, does not break us, and we will not retreat.
Meanwhile, the strategic experts and a political analyst in Sudan say that imposing security measures will calm things down by reducing the friction from direct confrontation. And protesters in Khartoum and other cities need leaders to help them reach their goals.
I think that the security measures taken by the security services are aimed at preventing a recurrence of what happened on the 19th of December, so that there will be no costing lives for the young people, for the procedures, for the dispersal from the front of the Republican Palace. Therefore, I think that it will be useful in preventing injuries and reducing friction between the security services and the demonstrators.
These demonstrations need leadership in order to reach their goals. In their current way, they cannot achieve the desired goals, because a demonstration in the end must have leadership and a roadmap to achieve the goals, which is the full restoration of civil authority, and it is expected that these demonstrations will continue until decisions are reached or political settlements. The demonstrations in the street cannot reach the goal unless there is a political force that crystallizes these demonstrations in a clear roadmap and arrives at inevitable results.
South Africans are mourning the death of Christian clergyman and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He died at the age of 90 on Sunday in Cape Town after battling with cancer. CGTN's Ashtatal brings us the story.
A unifying symbol for all African freedom fighters. This is a description of Desmond Tutu from the Norwegian Nobel Institute, a statement that South Africans agree with.
Thank you for being with us.
It's actually very sad, and I don't think not only for South Africa, but for Africa as a continent. We have lost a great icon, a father, a human who was there not just for the South African people, but for Africa as a nation, Africa as a unit, Africa as one.
Any death is a sad death, actually. I mean, like, if we're losing our leaders like this, our elders, it's always sad, it's never easy. So I'm very saddened about his death.
Stephen Gish, the author of a biography on Tutu, regards him as South Africa's Martin Luther King. Tutu also maintained a presence in the international community, taking part in mediation efforts from Kenya to as far as the island of Cyprus. His memory as a brave and authoritative leader will forever be ingrained in those who knew him.
I feel very, very, very down emotionally right now, because he was somebody that almost everybody liked, especially the kids. They love him.
We're very sad.
Very sad. It was a real shock to us. He
was a great man.
Yes, somebody to look up to, and we're really going to miss him.
In recent years, Tutu was hospitalized several times due to infections associated with cancer treatment. President Cyril Ramaphosa says his demise marks another chapter in bidding farewell to those who have handed down to the nation a liberated South Africa. Astatal, CGTN.
You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead on the program. Demand in Nigeria is rising for woven cane baskets amid holiday season. And China marks 40-day countdown to Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics.
So this is it. I'm just about to be shot.
It's a little tense here
bottles are being thrown. As they do so,
there are about 3 critical bridges here in Marawi. That's one of them. We're going to cross that bridge.
As you can see behind me, police forces
who are replying with gas. Gas just came in.
Tear gas, so it's all begun now.
Divisions leading the charge into West Mosul have brought us here.
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots.
This is where most of the fighting has been concentrated.
This is the front line now after 9 days of fighting.
We're about 2 to 3 kilometers from
within
the front
clear
line.
view of this front line position.
In Nigeria, cane craft artists and entrepreneurs are cashing on the Yuletide rush. The high demand for woven cane baskets comes with the season's gift-giving traditions. The once dying craft has now come alive as artists express creativity with the cane baskets in varying shapes and sizes. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam reports.
40-year-old Peter Robinson is popularly known as the King of Cane for his artistic dexterity in the craft. Weaving with gusto, he's doubling his efforts to finish clients' orders for these bespoke cane baskets. Robinson started cane craft over 3 decades ago. He was barely 7 years old. Now it's peak period this Yuletide, and his craft is finally paying off. He rakes in nearly 20% in profits. He credits it to his artistic prowess.
When you do a good job, the job sells itself. There is good profit in this job, especially if your work is good, and people in Abuja likes and will patronage a neat job anytime.
Robinson has a growing customer base. Adiola Nganje is one of those who patronize him. She runs Happy Hampers, a gifts packaging business that's bolstering this Yuletide. Depending on the size and items, a hamper could cost between $45 and $250, and for exotic gifts, it costs even more.
The cane baskets are more durable, they are flexible, they are resistant to the weather, whether rain or heat, and you can use them even after giving the gift. Even after having the gift, it can still be used for household use, to store things. If you are doing like 15 to 20 hampers on an average, you can make like 15% profit on each basket. So it's a very good business. Since the beginning of the holiday season, that's since the beginning of December, I've made like 10 to 15 per week.
Cane craft is a major expression of artistry in Nigeria, passed down from generations. Chairs, tables, stools and other attractive home furniture items are created from cane. Cane artists like Peter Robinson believe that with government support, Nigeria can make revenue from exports.
I'm hoping that we can start exporting this cane craft because the Western world needs cane. If the government supports us, there is a huge opportunity to do better on this craft.
We can do more than better than this for this our work.
All materials from cane crafts are sourced locally, and it's helping many like Peter Robinson and Adiola Nganje not only earn a living, but create job opportunities for others. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
There are 40 days left until the Beijing Winter Olympics, and Beijing has held an event attended by famous Chinese athletes to promote winter sports. The country's athletes have been getting ready for the games for months now. The national ice hockey team, for example, has just finished training in Russia. Leaders of different countries are expected to attend the opening ceremony. Russian President Vladimir Putin will be there in person. The president of the International Olympic Committee, Thomas Bach, says the games will bring the world together in the spirit of peace, friendship and solidarity. Olympic officials and athletes from other countries say they look forward to Beijing 2022.
We, through Olympics, through the Olympic ideals, we bring everyone together. And I think in this time, in COVID time, it's really, really important to have Olympic Games.
I just returned from the World Cup. I will check out others' performances and flaws through the videos, and also mine. I've trained day and night. We still have 40 days left. I feel good.
I'm eager to see it live with my own eyes and take some pictures and present it to the whole world how nice venues you have made.
Well, final preparations and testing continue at all the venues for the Beijing Winter Olympics. Feng Yilei has this report from Zhangjiakou, Hebei province, which will host the snow events.
With Beijing Winter Olympic Games around the corner, the co-host city of Zhangjiakou is set to hold its final week of training and stress tests. It will mark the completion of pre-game testing for all venues at Zhangjiakou's Guyangshu cluster, the National Ski Jumping Center, the National Cross-Country Skiing Center, and the National Biathlon Center.
In the final month or so, we will strive to improve the temporary facilities of the venues. For example, we have finished the snowmaking on trails and are now making snow to create a beautiful environment of ice and snow. And there's still work to be done on the Olympic broadcasting services.
The newly built National Ski Jumping Center is now a landmark. It is China's first ski jumping site that meets international standards. Officials say they have done everything they can to ensure the safety of athletes while protecting thousands of trees on the mountains. The construction of the National Ski Jumping Center requires most work of all venues. Designers and workers have overcome high technical difficulties, and the facilities are undergoing final adjustments for the Winter Olympic Games.
During the test events, we noticed some problems with, for example, doorknobs and heating. These are all minor problems. Our operation team has been communicating with the International Snow Federation and other international organizations. The feedback we've got suggests they're very happy with the whole venue.
The newly built National Cross-Country Skiing Center in Zhangjiakou will host the cross-country skiing and Nordic combined events. Its facility manager says more than 90% of the work here is done, and they've taken action to deal with risks brought by the pandemic.
Our work is centered around the athletes. All relevant staff need to be 2 meters from the athletes, and we have set up preventive fences. In order to protect the safety of the spectators, we have cancelled some standing room in the auditorium.
The Genting Snow Park is the only venue that's been adapted from an existing ski resort. It will host some 20 skiing and snowboarding events. The trails that have been reshaped for different events can be repurposed.
The site will continue to function as a public ski resort after that. We can reduce the difficulty of the trails through reshaping so that people can also use the Olympic trails. Likewise, we can also add difficulty through reshaping to hold other international competitions.
Other non-competition facilities that are getting ready include the Winter Olympic Village, the Mountain Press Center, and high-speed transport links from Beijing to Zhangjiakou. These will also be used for other events when the Olympics are over. Feng Yilei, CGTN, Zhangjiakou.
And we continue with Winter Olympics news. China's foreign ministry has urged Japan not to politicize sports in response to Tokyo's announcement that it will refrain from sending a government delegation to the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing in February. Tokyo has instead opted to send some officials with direct ties to the Olympics. Tokyo's decision follows a US-led diplomatic boycott of the Games. China did not send a government delegation to the Tokyo Summer Olympics this year, but only a sports delegation led by the Sports Bureau chief.
China welcomes the Japanese Olympic Committee, other relevant persons and Japanese athletes to participate in the Beijing Winter Olympics and Paralympics. We have noted the relevant remarks from the Japanese government. We hope and urge the Japanese side to implement China and Japan's commitments to support each other's Olympic Games and not to politicize sports. China is confident that it can work with all parties to realize a more united Olympic spirit and present a simple, safe and exciting Olympic Games to the world.
Well, African basketball had a milestone in 2021 as the continent continued to recover from the global pandemic. 3 major competitions were held as several youth basketball programs tipped off around Africa this year. CGTN's Mohamed Abubakar looks back at a renaissance year in the sport.
Basketball bounced back with force across Africa in 2021. The epicenter of the action was at the majestic Kigali Arena in Rwanda that hosted the inaugural Basketball Africa League in May. This is the flagship club basketball competition that involved zonal champions across the continent. Powered by the revered American NBA and world governing body FIBA, the BAL showcased the depth of local talent the sport has in Africa.
Basketball in general in Africa is on the way up, and I think we got to be excited for it. And I think our players have done their best to get better. I think now the pressure is on us and the rest of the leaders to really step up and not let our players down. We've shown that the talent is there, you know, and now when you go across Africa and the game is growing, now we got to grow everything else. We got to grow the facilities. We got to, you know, focus on how do we make the game better.
Rwanda's capital was yet again home to the 30th edition of the FIBA Men's Afrobasket in August. The competition, which was celebrating its 60th anniversary, was an unforgettable tournament. Despite Tunisia defending their title, it was the East African teams that won everyone's hearts. Debutant South Sudan reached the quarterfinals. Kenya and Uganda made the pre-quarters, while the host nation left a lasting impression.
And Rwanda has been so stable, not only having a good team, but basically carrying the torch and the flag for Africa right now. And to be a part of that in East Africa has been amazing. And I think there's other countries that I really believe have the talent, you know, Burundi, Somalia. I really believe that the talent is there. It's just about getting it together and organizing. There's a lot of players that I know from those countries that can play basketball.
The FIBA Women's Afrobasket in Yaoundé, Cameroon, capped off a busy year for the sport. Nigeria beat Mali in the final to win their 3rd successive title.
We need to still promoting the women in basketball. The women are very important in our society, specifically in Africa. You know the cultural problems that we have. So this is our main objective, is to look for the woman.
FIBA Africa also tipped off an elite youth camp program led by NBA and FIBA experts to further develop young players in Kenya, Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire. The program will continue across other countries in Africa in 2022. Mohamed Abubakar, CGTN.
In African football news, Barcelona's teen sensation Abdes Samad